One of the major findings of the Financial Action Task Force was the country's law enforcement agencies' poor score in terms of investigating anti-money laundering and combating terrorism financing crimes. While there have been questions as to why those identified to have been involved in the state capture era have not yet been prosecuted. This month, South Africa is being reviewed by the Financial Action Task Force on its progress in addressing its approaches to anti-money laundering and the countering of financing terrorism. In 2021, it found that the country complied with only 3 out of 40 benchmarks set. It's only recently that National Treasury has tabled a comprehensive bill that looks to ensure that the legal framework of the country stands ready to deal with these ills. The bill seeks to have these laws amended. The Trust Property Control Act, which falls under the Justice and Correctional Services Department. The Non-Profit Organisations Act under the Social Development Department. The Financial Intelligence Centre Act, which is the responsibility of the Ministry of Finance. The Companies Act, which falls under the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Competition. And the Financial Sector Regulation Act, which is the purview of the Ministry of Finance. But the Financial Action Task Force decides in February next year whether South Africa should be grey-listed or not.
National Treasury also had admitted that they were trying to address some of these shortcomings, but the timelines are quite too tight. So I think we can expect a miracle at the end of the year in Feb, but more likely than not, our view is that we would be grey-listed.
If the FATF decides to grey-list South Africa, there will be immediate negative economic impacts for the country.
I think if you look at other countries that have been grey-listed, the estimation is that it probably has an impact of about 1% of GDP. That's something that South Africa can ill afford. I don't think any South African really escapes this.
Most people seized with the grey-listing issue, even the likes of National Treasury and the Financial Intelligence Centre, have assumed the worst, that South Africa will not be able to dodge the grey-listing bullet come February. But if that does happen, other countries have shown that it is possible to rectify the issues and come out of the grey-listing status. The only question is, will South Africa have the focus to implement the strategies put in place to do the same quickly?
When Mauritius was blacklisted, you're right, it took 20 months for them to come off. I think it was, one of the quickest turnarounds, but everyone got behind, government, private sector, and, they ensured that they did what was necessary.
South Africa can ill afford to be grey-listed for a long period, as that will impact on its ability to trade with counterparties. It will also likely see consequences such as the further weakening of the local currency, which is inflationary, and won't augur well for capital investment in the country, which will derail the country's plans for economic growth and the much-needed job creation that would come with it. Nampumelelo Siziba, SABC News, Johannesburg.